Hello everyone, I'm Shannon Kantner and you're watching a special CMSD TV program, Talk to the CEO, featuring District CEO Eric Gordon. We're here in the studio with him for a Q&A discussing district news and updates. In today's episode, we'll talk about the district's state report card, the annual State of the Schools address, and the national conference CMSD hosted for the Council of the Great City Schools. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
You too. A lot has happened since the last time we were able to sit down here. A new report card is out. You delivered the State of the Schools address, and CMSD hosted a national conference that drew more than 1,000 educators to Cleveland. So let's take a moment to talk about all of those in that order, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right. First up, the district's letter grade on the state report card does not show the full picture. What signs of progress did we see, and who were some of the noteworthy performers?
Yeah, so what I've said is, we didn't need the report card to tell us that we're not yet meeting Ohio's new high learning standards. We have a long way to go to get to those standards. But what it did show us is really substantial gain in three core areas. First of all, our graduation rate continues to go up. It is now 72%, and that is another record high for the district. And that's up from 52% just 6 years ago, so it closed in a 20-point gap. We also, when we look at the K through 3 literacy measure, jumped from an F to a C, and more than doubled the number of kids who were off track that got moved to on track in reading, with 80% of our third graders then promoting to fourth grade under Ohio's reading guarantee program. And then in the middle, the 4th through 8th graders, that is measured by a score called the Performance Index, and we saw a 4-point gain there, and we are just below the D rating in that measure too. And so, continued progress there will really help us to continue to accelerate. Really exciting is that we saw all kinds of schools that were seeing gains, and so we saw typical schools like Paul Dunbar School and Euclid Park and schools that have not typically been the ones that we would see at Clark on the west side. We also saw some of our new and innovative models working. We saw some of our academies moving. Our investment schools, particularly Glenville and East Tech, saw great graduation rates. And so it's exciting to see the growth across our portfolio instead of any one portion of it being the only place we're seeing growth. It's got a lot of good news in it. Long way to go, but a lot of good news.
You took me to my next question, which is, even though we can talk about all this progress, you've also said that the report card results underscore the fact that we are not where we want to be yet, and point the way to strategy for this year and beyond. So what lessons did we learn, and where do we go from here? And could you also talk about what people might see immediately, and then also what will come longer term?
Yeah, what you see now is that we know how to move K through 3 literacy, and I expect we'll continue to accelerate that, both the C letter grade we have and the third grade reading guarantee, where kids have to read before they promote to fourth grade. We know how to move the high school graduation rate. We've done it year after year after year, and I expect we're going to see continued growth there. The middle was always the hardest part, and in part it's because the state's changed the test 3 times in 3 years. But now we've had the same test for 2 years in a row. We can really analyze that. We can really bear down in that middle, and there's a couple of things we need to do. One is really focus on growing kids from last year's performance to this year's performance. So looking at, if I was limited last year, can I get to basic? If I was proficient last year, can I get to advanced? Can I get to accelerated? And so looking from last spring to this spring instead of this fall to this spring. And then the other is, what is that summer experience programming so that we don't have learning loss? We have programming for K through 3 literacy. We have summer programming for high school graduation. We don't yet have high school programming for middle grades, and so we'll be looking at that this year too.
Excellent. Not long after the release of the report card, you delivered the annual State of the Schools address. The address updated the community on district progress, but also served as sort of a rallying cry, if you will. What message did you convey there?
Well, my message was that Cleveland has the bold goal of ensuring every child has a quality education and that every neighborhood has a number of quality schools to choose from. And so while I just did share that there's lots of islands of excellence, things that are happening that are really positive, it's not being done universally. I also point out that actually there isn't a city in America who has done it universally. And so we have the awesome responsibility of being the first. And I introduced a strategy that we're aggressively pursuing called Say Yes to Education, which is, how do you clear the barriers out of the way that our kids face living in one of the poorest cities in the country, so that we can really dig into this education and accelerate it as quickly as possible. And so Say Yes is our community wraparound program, only at scale for an entire city. And so how do we use that catalytic space to allow us to really work hard on moving the agenda, continuing to move the agenda on our academics?
Speaking of Say Yes to Education, what's the status of CMSD's quest to become a chapter of this national organization? And are there any developments you can tell us about as we speak?
Well, so it's moving. You know, this is a lot of work we have to put in together as a community, but we now have a group called the Community Planning Committee that meets every other week and is shepherding the work on the behalf of the district. We have a communications task force that has launched a new web page, which is CLEPath2SayYes. That's the number 2.org, where the community can keep up and see what's happening, see who these members are. We have a group that has been really digging into what would the scholarship criteria be when when that's in place. We have some philanthropy that have been thinking about what is their funding going to look like in this space and how do we work better together. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff working. And I think you're going to start seeing more and more as we go into winter and certainly into spring. Our goal is in the next 12 to 15 months, we are a Say Yes city.
We hope so. A lot of momentum, it sounds like. Exciting things
really
happening.
Exciting.
Good. Another exciting thing, of course, from October 18th through the 22nd, CMSD hosted the Council of the Great City Schools annual fall conference and had a chance to showcase its work to urban superintendents, board members, and other leaders from across the country. Talk to us about how the district did as a host. You can brag a little if you'd like, and what we shared with our guests about the work going on under the Cleveland Plan.
Well, so the council is, in my opinion, the single strongest professional development in K-12 education, particularly for urban educators. It is led by the 70 largest urban districts in the country, Cleveland being one of those, and it is our professional organization. Cleveland hadn't hosted the conference in decades, and so we were super excited to win the bid 2 years ago. We've been waiting on this, to be the host city. The conference turned out to be very well attended, the second highest in conference history with over 1,100 educators in attendance. And I have to say our local planning team just did an amazing job. And Cleveland just shined. You know, unfortunately, a number of people came to Cleveland with kind of a old-fashioned point of view and didn't have very high expectations of us. Not only did we meet those expectations, but we far exceeded those expectations, and to the person we heard about just what a great time people had, how well they were treated, not just in our hotel with the Hilton that did a great job, but in their taxis and their Ubers and their Lyfts, when they were at restaurants or at venues. We went to Pickwick and Frolic, we went to the History Center, Case Western Reserve History Center, we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There were probably 10 different piggyback conferences, smaller conferences going on around the city. And so it really was a time for Cleveland to shine, and shine we did. As far as our content, we always encourage my professional staff to submit on the work they're doing. It is a juried selection process, and we had 18 out of 22 presentations accepted, and so that's really a high bar. And so we talked about student voice in our student advisory committee. We talked about growing the CEO and his team. We talked about our talent work and partnerships with Cleveland State to get the best teachers into Cleveland and to retain them. We talked about our portfolio planning process. We talked about new school models like our Lincoln West Global Studies model. It really was taking the work we're doing, sharing it with our peers, and getting feedback from them. And like I said, some of the best professional learning that I know of in our industry.
And we talk all about the presentations with educators, but CMST students shined at the conference as well.
Yes, so CMST students shined in a number of ways. I had students on my panel with me for Student Voice, and of course they stole the show. Students created all of the artwork that was on the luncheon tables, the breakfast tables, the dinner tables, and we had different art pieces every single day. Student performers performed dance, spoken word, band, orchestra, choral selections throughout the entire program. And then on the last day, Van Jones, the CNN moderator, moderated a town hall on equity, and we had a student from Lincoln West High School of Global Studies, a student from New Tech East at East Tech, and a parent of 3 CMST students, 2 students and a graduate, serve on the panel with Van Jones, and of course again stole the show.
It was pretty cool, and I had a lot of people tell us, of course we were there at the conference, and we had a lot of people tell us, even though they saw Bill Gates, Rosario Dawson, Van Jones, the highlight of the conference, I think, to a lot of people were the CMST students, which is pretty neat.
I think they got it just right.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, it's hard to believe, especially given all these other exciting events that have been going on. Time kind of flew by. We've already completed the first grading period of the 2017-2018 school year. What trends have you noticed? What can we expect to see the remainder of the year?
Well, you know, it's really clear to me that we've had a great start to the school year. Kids, families, and educators are all really hard at work on these report cards, and I would encourage every parent to look at those grades, set some goals for that next interim report that's going to be here before you know it. Make sure that you're talking with your student scholar and with your educators so that you know how our students are going to get to those grades. Connect it back to our larger report card. What is the growth that you're going to see in this next 5 weeks to the interim and the next 9 weeks to the end of the fall semester? But I'm pleased with what I'm seeing. I can tell that our kids are working hard, I can tell that our families are engaged, and I can tell that our educators are working hard as well.
Can't ask for more than that.
That's right.
Anything else you'd like to share with the community, students, staff?
Well, just again, you know, the conference got an opportunity for 1,100 educators from 70 cities across the country to see what I really know all the time, just what a great organization this is and great community this is. And it was really humbling and a source of pride to get to show off Cleveland for all it's worth, and can't do that without great kids, families, and community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here to talk about it and share those experiences with us.
Absolutely.
We, of course, look forward to the next episode.
That's right.
All right, if you have a question for the CEO, you can visit clevelandmetroschools.org/CEO questions to submit your own. It's a simple form and you can remain anonymous. You might just see it on the next episode. In the meantime, you can follow the CEO on Twitter at Eric Gordon CEO. Thanks for watching Talk to the CEO, and for more CMSD TV programming, visit the CMSD News Bureau website at clevelandmetroschools.org/news. We'll see you next time.